All right, ready to start the recording? All right, everybody. It's 7 o'clock on a Thursday. Pleasant good evening to you all. Thanks for joining us again for the New Jersey Developmental Disability Network Partners Virtual Town Halls. This is part 2 of a 4-part series entitled Reopening and Reimagining, Striving for the Ideal. I want to go over a couple of housekeeping things before we dive into the town hall itself. My name is Michael Brower. I'm an attorney with Disability Rights New Jersey. I'll be the host. Behind the scenes is Naomi. You might hear me addressing her now and then. She's pushing buttons to make sure everybody gets into the chat room, to make sure the audio is working, closed captions are working, and to make sure that the slides are moving smoothly. One thing I want to do a quick plug for Disability Rights New Jersey. Last year, we performed a statewide sheltered workshop survey, and we're looking to expand on that. So any information or experiences of folks who work in a sheltered workshop during the COVID-19 crisis, and particularly if the workshop closed, my understanding is all of them did close during the pandemic, we'd ask any workshop participants, families, or staff to share their thoughts and experiences with us. The best way to do that is the email address advocate@drnj.org, and that's up on your screen. The information there is just voluntary. If you have anything you'd like to share, again, if there are thoughts about your experience during the COVID-19 crisis as a worker or family member of somebody at a sheltered workshop, please share that with us. I want to introduce the DD partners, the folks that are on our Zoom and join us every week. Mercedes Witowski, the Executive Director of the New Jersey Council for Developmental Disabilities. Hear more from her later. From the Boggs Center on Developmental Disabilities, Colleen McLaughlin, the Associate Director. From the Office of the Ombudsman for Individuals with Intellectual Developmental Disabilities in their Family, the Ombudsman Paul Aronson and the Associate Director Christine Bachter. Join us on the call. Gwen Orlowski, the Executive Director from Disability Rights, is here with us tonight too. And I want to go through a couple of housekeeping just to make sure that everyone knows what to expect. I started talking a little bit before we began the session. For questions, the easiest way, if you have a question, a comment, a thought, anything that you want to share or a reaction, you can use the chat window. That is going to be in the black bar on your screen, either at the top or the bottom. If you don't see that, there's 3 dots that say more. You click that more, and it'll open up an additional window where you'll see the chat button. You can push that to open up your chat window. There will be a few times during tonight's Zoom where our guest speakers will be sharing their experiences and perspectives that will close the chat down temporarily while they're talking. That'll just help us prevent any kind of distractions and make sure that they have our undivided attention since they took time out of their days to come share with us. Also, if you are inclined or if you're joining us by telephone, there's a couple other ways that you can share questions with us. You can either email or text to questions@drnj.org. I'll have that up on a second screen and be monitoring it live. You can send a text message from an SMS-enabled phone to questions@drnj.org, or you can use your email client to send a question there as well. With that, that's our basic housekeeping. And when I got that all out of the way now, I want to turn the microphone over to Mercedes Witowski, Executive Director from the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities. Mercedes?
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everyone for joining us again this evening in this part 2 of this first two-part series on adult services and our next 2-part series on children's services. So we're happy to be in your homes this evening. So the first thing, if you go to the next slide, Michael, that I wanted to do, because some of you may not have been able to participate last week, was just to give a real quick recap on the DD reopening work group and the reopening conversation that we had last week. Again, this is a conversation, so we encourage you to participate through the chat and questions at drnj.org in order to hear from you. So DDD convened a work group to discuss the reopening of congregate day programs and other areas. And their first meeting was June 4th. We had our 6th meeting today, with meetings scheduled next week, at which point we hope to conclude most of our work around the aspects of what the group was assigned. So if you can go to the next slide, please. The recommendations and guidelines for the work group included coming up with information on the now, what we're doing, and how we can advise individuals and families as to things that they can be doing while we're still in this closing phase of our day programs and other services and supports. Pre-opening, ways that the committee will help to inform the division on steps to take regarding how to prepare for opening. The third phase, soft opening, how to slowly ramp up opening of day programs and other day services. And then ramping up to a full capacity. And then the fifth phase, which we hope we don't have to ever use, is how to adjust based on data in perhaps having things slowly close down, or based on geography with data, how we might need to make adjustments through the service system. So those are that's the charge of the reopening committee. Next slide, Michael. I did show last week the 10 individuals that are on the work group. There are 5 service providers, and you see them up on your slide right now. Those 5 represent the 3 trade organizations in our state, the ARC of New Jersey, ABCD, and NJACP, and then 2 providers that are not residential service providers, but just run day services, and may or may not be associated with a trade organization. Next slide. The 5 other members of the Reopen Work Group are advocates, including the Bog Center, and myself as part of the Council on Developmental Disabilities, as well as Eileen Hurley, who's the chair of the Family Support Planning Council and the Family Advisory Council, Carolyn Hayer, who we're very delighted is one of our panelists this evening, and Renee Pierce, who is a self-advocate who receives services from an impacted agency. Next slide. So we heard about reopening concerns last week. We shared concerns that we had already heard, and they're up here on your slide. Transportation continues to be a big concern, given that most folks rely on some form of transportation to get to and from their day services. How to wear masks, who can wear masks, who can't wear masks, and other areas like testing, remote and in-home services were some of the concerns, reopening concerns that we've heard. Next slide. And then we also heard from many families regarding recommendations, protocols, how to prioritize the services and supports that people will get and when they will get them as reopening occurs. So next slide. I wanted to also take a minute before we move into reopening. We did have a DDD had a division update meeting today, and gave a status as to where the reopening work group was at. And I wanted to share some of that in case you missed that today. So what John reported is that the group has reviewed many resources and information through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, much guidance from other New Jersey state agencies that have already worked on their reopening and issued their reopening plans within the Department of Health, Department of Children and Families, and also guidance from other states and had opportunities to look at their reopening strategies to help inform the work here in New Jersey. So sometimes it's great to have work that's happened before you're ready to move forward. The other things that the state shared today was some of the priority areas of the work group, and it was not an exhaustive list, but I will share with you. The work group is working on guidance for an individual assessment, an assessment that families would complete with their loved one that would help inform the provider that they use in terms of various aspects of what needs to be considered around the individual's needs and their thoughts and plans for returning to a day program, and what services they might receive now and how those services might be continued in some way. The other thing the work group will look at is guidance that'll provide recommendations for items that need to be addressed in order to reopen safely, and guidance on what the facilities will need to do to prepare for opening, and what is being called a site assessment that providers would need to follow in order to, verify that their services are ready for the next step. So that is the status. As I said, we're hoping that the group will have concluded much of those documents that will then be reviewed at the state level. And John did say today that then they would be issued out for implementation. So that's about as much as we can update tonight. There is, again, no date for reopening programs, but I think we are well on our way as a work group to having completed much of the work, laid the foundation for all of the work. And I would say confidently that we are very close, and hope that the state would be able to start to share that information with everyone soon. So the second part of this town hall is around reimagining. I put a couple questions up here because I looked at the chat from last week, and we appreciate that you all contributed to that conversation. So one of those questions was, how can I really reimagine in a time like this? Already under a lot of pressure, or already dealing with many things. So how can I reimagine? Is this really the time to reimagine? Who can help me reimagine? And I know that we have great folks on our call tonight. So if you wanted to think about reimagining, this is the right call to be on. And then what are those possibilities for reimagining? And then we go all the way down to, I just want things to go back to normal. I'm really not interested in reimagining, and that's okay too. But we're glad that you're still here and you can listen to this dialogue and conversation, and we can begin to have another great discussion. So next slide. So the first person who is going to start that discussion for us is Carolyn Hayer. Carolyn's a family advocate. She's going to give her perspective, and I'll let her share. And then we're going to close the chat right now so that we can listen to Carolyn, and then we'd like you to pick up sharing reactions to Carolyn's presentation. Carolyn.
Well, thank you, Mercedes. And I am very pleased to be here this evening. I was just looking at the participants and I see a lot of familiar names and friendly faces. And so just reminds me that we are all in this together, which we constantly hear every day as we all try to navigate through these unprecedented times that we're in. So tonight I was asked to share with you a little bit about my perspective as we all navigate through these uncharted waters that we are in, and to really think about, what was life like pre-COVID, what is life like now, and what we might imagine life will be like post-COVID. And so I want to start by saying, as I look at that picture, that was me pre-COVID. This is me now. So you see what COVID has done. But as I started to think about, how would I frame this conversation, it reminded me of many years ago when my son, Chris, who is now 32, he has autism. And when he was younger and in school, my driving thought all through school was do whatever we can do to prepare him to not be home with nothing to do when school ends. And, we worked very hard to try to reach that goal. And I feel that COVID just made that was my greatest fear, that he would be home with nothing to do. And overnight, that's exactly what happened for us and a lot of other families, that we went from having our loved ones in programs and having the supports and services that they needed to lead productive lives to going to nothing. And so that's hard, but it's taken me a while to kind of wrap my head around that. But I am also the eternal optimist. And so I like to think that this is an opportunity for us to reimagine. You know, it took us 20 some odd years to imagine and get to what we had before. Now we're kind of back to square one, and thinking about what does life look like in this new world. And I do believe that we will be able to bring some of what we had in existence. But I also think that a lot of the structure that my son really thrives on, and many of our kids really thrive on, is very uncertain right now. And I think that's very hard for them as well as for us, as their family members who want to support them in the best way that we can. So I know we're going to hear later about some tools to help us with this process of reimagining. But I think before we can use those tools, we really have to be at a place where we think that it's a positive thing to do, to reimagine. And so it's difficult to reimagine. And so we really need to try. That's kind of where I'm at now, not thinking about budgets, not thinking about all of the restrictions that are currently hampering us right now, but to kind of look beyond that and think about, in this new world, what would I really, really want for my loved one? And I think the primary driving force for all of us right now is health and safety. And that has to be the driving force. And because of that, there are going to be things that we're not going to be able to do that we might like to do. And I think we have to recognize that, but not just stop there. Also think about what to do beyond this point. So once we have mastered that, what might our lives look like? How might we function differently? And I think that one way to do that is to dream, and dream big, right? Let's really try to think outside of the box. And I heard some folks say to me, what does that really mean? And I think it means something different for everybody. Oftentimes, I think we want to know, what are the services? And let me go down that list and kind of check off the things that might work for me. And I think we should take this opportunity to kind of recreate that list and maybe add things to the list that were never there before. It reminds me of many years ago when we were pushing for inclusive practices. And early on, there was a lot of resistance to that because it was new and had never been done before. So I think we're kind of in that same place right now. We're going to have to do things that we've never done before. And we're going to have to do things differently than we've done before. And that's hard. It's hard to go down an unknown path. But that's what I've been trying to do. That's what I've been trying to wrap my head around. I've tried to kind of block it out into different categories. What are we doing differently at home? Because certainly our home life has changed. You know, used to be up, everybody out the door, off to work, whatever it is that you had to do. And now we've had to readjust to what that looks like. You know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back as we try to get around that process. But this has gone on so long, I think most of us, to some degree, have gotten to a point that we're in some sort of a routine at home now. And then I think we have to start to think about, what does our life out in the community look like? And how is that going to be different than how it looked before? And there are a lot of concerns with that. You know, masking and social distancing, and we're so reliant on what other people do, probably more than we ever have been. And that's concerning as well in terms of keeping our loved ones safe. But I do think we should try to identify those things that we can do out in the community where we can maintain our safety, and then look for support, the supports that we need to do those things. And then the third piece is, what do our day services or day programs look like? So as Mercedes shared, the committee has been working very hard. And it's such a challenge because everyone's needs are so different and so varied. And to kind of come up with something that's going to work for everyone is very, very difficult. And I think we have to acknowledge that we're going to do the best we can, and we're probably going to have to tweak it along the way, and that's okay. And I think that that's what we're going to have to do at home, in the community, and in our service programs as well. And so I'm trying to take this opportunity to think about not what exists, but what would I want to exist, and then identify what are the supports, the tools, the structures, the services that we would need to put in place to make those dreams become a reality. And so I would invite everyone on this call to try to do the same, try to push that fear that I know that is rising up aside. It will be difficult. And then we also have to think about, once we've identified what it is that we want, what do we have to do to provide our kids with the skill sets that they will need to actually be able to take advantage of those things. And so there may be some new skills that have to be developed, some training that needs to take place, some instruction that needs to take place. But I really, really think at this point, everything's on the table. So we have to really think about, this is what I want, this is what I need to get there, this is what my child needs to get there, young adult, and then really go to work in terms of identifying where can we access those services. So I don't know if there were questions, but that's kind of my thought process right now. And I'll tell you, it changes every day. I get up the next morning and I think, oh, maybe not that and something else, but I would hope others are coming along on that journey.
Well, Carolyn, it's great for you to be that honest with us. You don't have all the answers. I don't think any of us do, and that's why we're here tonight. If we could turn on the chat, Naomi, then and then I'll just ask you, Carolyn, and it's great to be working with you on the reopening committee, because you said it, health and safety is really the driving force, and there are some families that are willing to take some level of risk in order to re-engage their child in the services that they had pre-COVID. There's some that we're hearing don't want to have any level of risk. And will the state offer enough flexibility to continue some of the current things that they're doing that are remote? Is that an area that you've given some consideration to, accessing remote services with Chris, so that he has the things that he enjoys doing, but maybe the day program stays as an element maybe toward the future? But is that something you've looked at or thought about?
Yes. So, and that's a great question, because I think it speaks to this whole reimagining. Had someone said to me prior to this, oh, we're going to give you all these remote services, I probably would not have thought that would be something we should take advantage of. But our day program is Quest, and we actually have a daily Zoom. And when we got the notification that this was going to start, honestly, my thought was, all right, I'll plop them in front of the computer, but I really didn't have high expectations, which I should know better by now. And day one, his face lit up just from seeing his friends that he hadn't seen in a long time, which I never would have been able to predict. And we are now to the point that we have our daily Zoom. He can log himself in. He is relatively independent with most of the activities. And so, yes, we would definitely look towards continuing some level of remote instruction, in that he still needs a lot of support when out in the community. And so this is something that he's engaged, he's learning, he's active. And so that has been working for us to some level. So for us, that's a yes.
Awesome, thank you. So Carolyn, the chat's gonna be up, and I know you're not going anywhere, so we might come back to you, but I'll use a phrase that I've heard almost every day now. Here's a woman that needs no introduction because we had her on our panel last week. So Amy Watts is the support coordinator. So go to the next slide. Thank you. She has graciously included her email address here because she wants to make sure that you have a way to contact her. And Amy's got some words around reimagining she's going to share with us now.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for having me back. I really, really do appreciate it. Carolyn said it really best when she said we need to think outside the box. And when we talk about reimagining, the reality is that while day programs are a really great service and provide lots of wonderful places for people to get connected to each other, to do some volunteering, to learn some great skills, the reality is that they might really not be available. Not only might they not be available for you, but it might not be, as Carolyn was saying, a good idea because of your health and safety needs to be in any type of a group. So there's some people where that might not be an option anymore. So now we're at the point where we ask the question, well, now what do I do? Right? Because here's something that was an important part of somebody's life that now it's not a good idea or not, it's too much of a safety and health risk for you to then take advantage of that service again. So I want you to pretend like there is no box. There's no box. There's no limits. Let's pretend there's no limits. Let's pretend there's no budget. Let's literally answer these two questions. What does a great day look like for you or your loved one? And once you think that, like, there's no restrictions. This is great. Pretend like there's nothing else going on. If you could choose anything to do in the world and that would give you joy, it would give you a sense of purpose, it would give you what it is that you're looking for in life, figure out what that is. Let's have some deeper conversations as to what's important to somebody. And then we go on and say, so how do we make that happen? What needs to be put in place to make that happen? So as we think about reimagining, I want you to really just kind of not think about services. I don't want you to think about what you can purchase with your budget. I want you to think about what it is that you want to do and you think your loved one would really like to do. With that in mind, there's a high likelihood that some remote learning would be okay. I give some providers a huge amount of credit. I've been encountering a guy that figured out how to do their music lessons. I found another one that has added self-defense classes over Zoom. I found another one that, just like Callan was saying, has like these friendship groups. So they get to keep talking about stuff. Another one did like Derby Day. They all did the hats. They all had like a little thing about the horses and they kind of watched it and figured it out together. So they found these really great ways to just do things as remotely as possible. Now, I hear you already. Virtual learning doesn't work for my loved one or for me. My kids are the best example of it. Virtual learning for school was an absolute disaster. It was not good. So that's not a vehicle that would work for them. But maybe having a person with you throughout your day will. Right? We figured out if we wear masks, we do stuff outside, we do things quite carefully, and we are very good about our cleaning and all of that stuff, that maybe some staff is a good idea. Having a person come to you that can make and help design that day, help you make that day possible. So I know I said don't think about services. Sorry, I'm going to do it anyway. So let's talk about support brokerage. This is a highly underutilized service. It's something you can purchase if you've got supports program or you've got CCP on the iRecord, so you need to be in the new system. However, it is an actual human being that can help you to find staff. They can help you to get them enrolled in one of our fiscal intermediaries. They can help watch over the timesheets and make sure that they're correct and send them in when they need to be sent in. They can help design the schedule. They can help them think about what places or what things they could be doing together and provide some support for you in getting that done. It's something you can use your budget for. There are companies right now that are available to do support brokerage. It's another person to help handle that stuff, because I know one of the hardest things to do is to find that right human being to connect with you, right? To connect with you, connect with your loved one that matches well within your family. A support broker is a person that you can add into your supports and services that can help you to do that. That's their main job. They can even go as so far as help you interview or help you to design the job tasks and the job duties that you might want for them, things along those lines. So that's just a really, really great resource that's out there right now. So if you're in that great space that Carolyn in, who's saying, you know what, I think we really need to figure something else out. We're here, or I think it's worth thinking about and pursuing that line of thought. I think it's worth the thought and the conversation. Then support brokerage might be a service that could really help you to get to where that is. That answer that question, how do we make that happen? That might be something that could help. Another one, and Mike, if you would switch a slide, please, is finding staff. So a big one is finding staff. So I'm very pleased to say I'm part of another group called the Collaborative for Citizen-Directed Supports. This is a group of agencies that's gotten together. We have providers of staff, we have some community partners, we have some support coordination agencies who get together, and our goal is self-direction. That's all it is. It is our main drive and focus that people have the voices, are loud and proud, and are heard so that they can make the choices in their life that make sense for them. And everything we do pushes towards that. What is up on your screen is a fact sheet, which I know Mercedes is going to be able to share, or if not, that's why I've got my email address there. This is an interactive map that helps you to find staff. So if you'll see, there's a couple of different colors on that little map on the bottom right-hand, maybe left. For me, it's the right-hand part of my screen. And see a couple of different colors. And there's a couple of different symbols. So most of them are these little hands with holding a little heart, and those are qualified providers. Those are staffing agencies who, if you click on the different colors, those are different agencies. So the different color is for the different companies. They will say, hey, I have a female staff in this zip code who's available these hours. So we all know one of the hardest things is like, yeah, this person's great, but they're not available. They're not available when I need them to be, you know, things like that. So the whole idea about this is that you can open up to your location. You can find one of the little hearts and hands. We are about to add another symbol on for a self-directed employee. So that's a person that you would hire, right? That's a human being that you would hire, because you create that relationship and you use one of our either Easter seals or public partnerships to hire that one person. So if it makes sense for you to hire somebody from a company, because that's what works for your family, you have a little hearts in the hands. If it makes sense for you to hire a person, because that's what works for you and your loved one and your family, then we're going to have that option too. If you'll notice, there's also a little plus sign. The little plus sign is a place for families to advertise and say, hey, I'm looking for a staff who can do these hours. I want them to be female, and I want them to be able to drive my loved one in their car. So there you can put some specific information on that. This is free for self-directed employees and for families. So for you all on the call, it's free. If you are a qualified provider, we are asking for a $50 a month fee to have you advertise as many open positions as you can possibly have, and use it. So this is a great way. It's only a little bit of the map. It is actually statewide, so it's only a small tidbit of the map that you can see there. But you'll be able to click on it and open up for your exact area and see how far away people are. All right, so it's just a resource that's out there that's available that I want to make sure we offer to everybody. And I hope that helps.
Thanks, Amy. I will ask DRNJ when they send out the information with this recording to also include this fact sheet, because it is difficult to read on the map, on the screen here. But we will definitely get that out to folks. It is a new tool, so the more people use it, the more robust it will become. And thank you for sharing. I'm going to take, I saw something on the chat about children, had more slant toward children's services and about those folks transitioning from school to adult. I really hope that in our July, the next two-part series, we'll be able to focus on those children's issues. And I will say, because I'll say this even if Carolyn wasn't on the call, SPAN has some really good resources on their website. So Carolyn, do you just want to unmute and just say that website name? Give that website address.
I'll type it in the chat because
Thanks.
it's little, but it's www.spanadvocacy.org.
Okay, you want to say anything else about specifically about the kids transitioning, Carolyn?
I appreciate Cecilia raising that issue. It's very challenging. We had hoped that there would be some stronger guidance around the graduates for this year, but I think that families need to make sure that they were informed by their school district that this is a change of placement for them, so that they could have had those conversations about the potential for compensatory services, because this was just an unprecedented thing. And for so many of the graduates who would have during the spring been getting a lot of their internships and those types of transition programming, they might still want to have some conversations either with their district or contact the Department of Education about what their options are.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Amy, for making yourself so available to folks even beyond tonight's call to help them. I know how high-spirited you are and committed you are, so we appreciate that. So I think Colleen is going to come in now and take us through the next half hour of our presentation tonight and discussion. Please continue in the chat when you can.
Hey, everyone. Sorry, my camera's a little dark. My room's getting darker as the sun goes down. So, Amy, thanks you, Mercedes. So Amy and Carolyn, really both said it. The whole idea of reimagining means thinking outside the box. And I know that sometimes can sound cliche, but it's really, really true. We want to use where we are today really as an opportunity to think beyond the barriers of what we know exists and really get back to the roots of person-centeredness and being able to create supports based on what people want to do and what their preferences are for their life. So throughout this crisis, we heard today, and many of us have heard throughout the past, 2-3 months, a wide variety of concerns related to the what ifs and what will happen after, we try to get back to normal. Many people have expressed concerns about going back to large congregate supports, and are really looking at ways that they can reimagine the way supports can be provided in either more individualized, smaller group, or self-directed ways throughout our communities. In addition to that, over this past few months, we've had a lot of togetherness. We've been together with our families a lot more than we typically are. And we've had a lot of opportunities to really learn new things about our loved ones, and their interests and their preferences, and sort of just getting to know each other a little better, which has been really a great opportunity. And, as we get to know each other again and more and deeper, we've had a way to really think more about what people want out of their services and supports, and start to look at new possibilities and opportunities. Some people have learned new things that people enjoy just by virtue of some of the technological supports that have been put into place. Other people have learned things that they thought the person liked, but really learned now that they're home, they didn't like that so much. So this is a fabulous opportunity to use this time of uncertainty and think about new ways that together people with their supporters can access a wide array of resources that are available throughout our communities and even beyond that. So I think it's important to mention that we all know that the current structure of the DDD system has been changing and evolving over the past couple years as fee-for-service has been lifted up. People now have greater flexibility with how their supports and services are scheduled and organized. And people don't have an all or nothing option. You don't have to choose the all or nothing option. You don't have to just choose the route where you either go to a day program 5 days a week, or else your options are extremely limited. Now what we're seeing is a real growth in the providers providing day habilitation services that will tap into community resources. We're also seeing a growth in other services, some of the ones that Amy actually showed on the map. Other services such as community inclusion services, supported employment, community-based services, self-directed options, and then technology-based supports that can really be interwoven and blended together in ways that align with the person's needs and preferences. And what you see on the screen now is really an example of those blended models. And you know, the first one is that blended model of where a person isn't quite ready to leave their day program entirely, but they maybe want a little something different out of it. So you see in this case that there's a person that happens to be going to their day program 2 days a week, but they may be getting supported employment 1 or 2 days. They may volunteer 1 or 2 days. They may tap into community resources like the rec center or gym, or have a self-directed employee to go take them to do dancing or out to dinner with friends and things like that. The other calendar here shows an example where the person has tapped more into self-directed options and community inclusion options and employment options, where they're volunteering, working, and taking even more part in the variety of community-based activities. And the way that today's budgets and services can be structured really allow for this. And now that people have been at home and maybe re-envisioning the way they want their lives to be coming out of COVID, this is a great opportunity to have conversations with supports coordinators to really figure out, like, what do I want? What do I need? And the supports coordinators can help you to identify the variety of services that are available in your area. You'd really be surprised about how there's way more than you even think there is. There's more and more stuff coming every day. I'm sure Amy can attest to that. And so we're grateful, to have with us today, a mom and a son, Ann and Joe Martinelli, who are going to share their examples of the way that Joe's weeks looked before COVID and the way they look now, and then also how they're envisioning his week is going to look after COVID. So Ann, and we can flip to the next slide. I'll turn it over to Ann and Joe Martinelli. So welcome. Maybe muted. I think you're muted, Ann. There you go.
Okay, am I good?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. We can't see ourselves though, but that's okay. Very much like Carolyn, I'm an optimist. I'm always talking about how the glass is half full rather than half empty. And Joe and I worked very hard to create a life for him when he left the education entitlement in 2005. So for 15 years, he's been self-directing his supports and services. And there's one thing that my husband always said to me, because at one point we had 7 self-directed employees. We've always had self-directed employees for 15 years. So at one point we had 7, and my husband would always say to me, well, what are you going to do if they all quit tomorrow? As you could tell, he's a glass half empty guy. And what I always said to him was, I did it once, I created this with Joe. And if it falls apart tomorrow, we can put it back together again. Well, that all happened in March. It fell apart in March when COVID-19, all the restrictions started coming in. So we had to do it and had to do it differently. But I'd like to, if you could put up the slide of what Joe's day looked like before COVID. There we go. I also wanted to say that Joe has given me permission to revoice for him if he does have difficulty talking, but he is able to answer questions from anyone who has any questions at some point, but he has given me permission to revoice for him. So you can see his schedule was pretty busy. He's been someone who has always wanted to be out of the house doing things, not staying home, out the door as soon as he could. So he's been volunteering at an assisted living facility with one of his self-directed employees since 2007. Yeah, you did see him today too, correct. and he played games, Pekino and bingo and current events. He did all sorts of things with residents, and he really made some good connections with some residents. Some he got so close to that he was able to go up into their rooms and visit with them at times as they got more ill. I mean, he's witnessed deaths. He's been in touch with families. He's gotten very close to people over all these years doing this, and really, connected with the employees too. He goes out to lunch with the employees that work there. Very, very big part of Joe's life. And on Monday nights, he would have a dance class. He's been doing that for 6 years.
I have that on Zoom.
Now you're doing it on Zoom, but now we're talking about before you did it. It was actually at the building. He did dance class, participated in a huge recital every June. Tuesdays, he did the movies because he has physical therapy at home, did the movies, went out to dinner with friends. Wednesdays, volunteering at the Habitat for Humanity Restore in Freehold. Thursdays, physical therapy again. He'd do his errands, haircuts, going to the mall, dinner with friends again on Thursday nights. Fridays, he worked on Friday mornings for a few hours, had occupational therapy, and Saturday back at the Habitat for Humanity Restore. So he was very much out of the house every day doing things, with his self-directed employees and having a very busy life. So like I said, March happened, everything stopped, came to a complete stop for him. All of this ended. This life ended one day. If you could go to the next slide. So we had to figure out what to do next. His Sundays stayed pretty much the same. It was family day, but now we're social distancing with his sisters and their families. We couldn't see them until we could get outside and social distance. They weren't coming into the house. So
I hate it.
I know you hate it. I know you hate it. We all hate it. We all hate it. I think everybody on this call has been social distancing. Colleen, he's asking you if you've been. You're muted.
I'm also talking to myself.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely, Joe.
Yes.
Don't you hate it?
I do hate it. I'm tired of my house.
Yeah. So, we are very fortunate that we can social distance outside on our deck with our family now. It is still difficult, but we are able to see them. So we needed to figure out what Joe was going to do during the rest of the week. So right now, he had 4 self-directed employees. 2 of them we had to ask not to come to the house. One of them also had a part-time job at Wawa, which he continues to do, so we couldn't have him coming to the house any longer. And another young lady is a police officer. She's been with Joe for 14 years. Again, she had, she's out and being exposed, so we had to ask her not to come. But the other young man who's been with Joe for 7 years is full-time, and he is, he just goes from his house to our house. So he has been coming to our house every day, Monday through Saturday. So we had to reimagine what they were going to do.
I've been doing
So yes, Joe has been FaceTiming with the other self-directed employees that he's not able to see anymore. He is able to FaceTime with them. But the OT and the PT that Joe was receiving, in the home, I didn't want those therapists coming in the home anymore. So we are now doing it through FaceTime. He's getting PT and OT each twice a week. He's doing it FaceTime with the same therapist,
and
Rob and Paula, right? And I will say that it is through Medicare. I don't know if Medicaid or if private health insurance does that, but Joe is under Medicare through my husband. So he is receiving those services, through remotely. And his self-directed employee is able to do that with him here in the home. His dance class, the one that he went to religiously every Monday night, since March has been on Zoom. So he's been able to still participate in the same dance class with the same instructor and the same other young adults in the class with him.
Am I out to go home? I am doing the tomorrow.
Yes, and it's continuing through the summer. Good point, Joe. Thanks for reminding me about that. It typically had run September through June, and then had a big dance finale in June. But now it's going to run through the summer because everyone is enjoying it virtually.
They get
They got permission to do it through Zoom. Yeah, but this is an out of pocket. This is not something that he uses his budget for. This is out of pocket. So you can see, you know, up on the screen, you can see that he's continues to do his PT and his OT, but he's still Zooming the people that he went out to dinner with. He can now FaceTime with. He took a goods and service class through the same agency that he's doing the dance class from. It's Family Resource Associates in Monmouth County. He did a goods and services class with them on Wednesdays. Now, like Carolyn had said, you know, she didn't think her son would be interested in doing anything remotely. I never in a million years would imagine that Joe would be interested in. He never really wanted to engage with anything on the computer. But this, you know, all the Zoom, the dance class, the FaceTime with the therapists, and this goods and service class that he took, loved it. You know, jumped right into it. It was a wonderful opportunity for us, for Joe and us, to learn that this is something that he would be interested in. So this is something he's engaging in every day, using Zoom and FaceTime and taking classes. He's also able to Zoom. He's also able to Zoom with the people that he volunteered with at Habitat for Humanity at the Restore in Freehold. He has Zoom calls with them, and he gets to see the same faces. You know, the people that he misses seeing. He does a dancercise class through LECAP Sports on Saturday mornings. It's the same instructor that he has in the dance class on Monday evenings. So we had to reinvent everything that Joe did outside of the home, inside of the home. He has gradually started now to go out to a park. He's going to a park a few times a week with his self-directed employee. In fact, he did it today. He did it yesterday too. He's now able to take advantage of the pool. We have a pool at home, something he never liked to do. He never liked to go in the pool. He would sit down there with us while all the rest of us were in the pool, but he really wasn't interested in the pool. Now he's going in the pool with his self-directed employee and really enjoying it. So I know, Colleen, you had mentioned about, you know, thinking outside the box, and something that I've always said, you know, I've always imagined Joe's life in helping him plan. I've always imagined it as if there is no box. We've never thought, you know, well, we're going to go in this silo, we're going to go in that silo, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We just always figured, you know, what does he like to do? He's a people person. He always wanted to be with people. So the volunteering at the assisted living, the volunteering at the Habitat for Humanity Restore, you know, where he gets to see the same people, but he's right smack in the middle of his community, you know, engaging with people. And, you know, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think, you know, as you and Joe are thinking about when things reopen and Joe starts to do more maybe of the old activities or even some new activities, you know, what are some things you're envisioning? Because regardless of whether or not somebody's self-directing or they're getting supports from DSPs that work in a group home, or perhaps DSPs that work in a community inclusion service or a rehabilitation service, these are all things that could be communicated up to the supports providers to say, hey, this is what we want to be able to do now that we're reopening. So do you have like ideas you want to share?
Well, I know some of the things that, you know, the volunteering that he's doing. He's been asked, he's already been asked, you know, that the Restore they're envisioning it reopening in July, and can he come back to do that? And we had a very frank talk about that. And Joe told us he's not comfortable going back yet. He wants to wait a while.
Yeah.
Peggy is the volunteer coordinator. She asked Joe if he would be willing to come back in mid-July, and you could see he's shaking his head. No, not yet. He's still worried about it. So, but you know, some of the things that I can see Joe doing, and we've talked about this, is continuing the remote classes. He's looking forward to he's taking 2 more remote classes this summer through FRA. And it's going to be one of the same teacher that he just had for this spring semester.
Am I out today?
You could say his name. Shout it out. Alan. He enjoyed Alan's class. So I can see, you know, we're going to continue with the remote stuff for a while, but you know, certainly getting back out, you know, getting outside. You know, Joe's been going to this, the recreation area in the next town over, and doing workouts there. You know, he and Manny will go over there, and Manny will bring music, and they're listening to music, and Joe will bring his 1-pound weights, you know, and they're in the shade, sun blocked up, and, you know, they're in the shade, doing workouts, but they're outside. So,
and
you know,
yeah, and there's a lot of things. So I think that that's one of the things, and you know, we're running short on time, so I want to make sure. Thank you. That's all awesome, and I think it gives a lot of, you know, all 3 of those presentations gave people a lot of food for thought for the different ways things can be done now and in the future. And Michael, if you wouldn't mind flipping to 2 slides from now, I think we'll get into so one of the things we wanted people to be able to have that are participating in this town hall today was a tool that they could use to sort of get their ideas out on paper, so that they could use this to have a conversation with their service providers, with their supports coordinators, to help really imagine the way that they want life to look as things are reopening, and also as things open, reimagining the future. And this tool is what's known as the Integrated Support Star. And some of you are very familiar with this. And I put the link in the chat, so hopefully you guys can see it. It says Integrated Support Star, and it's also at the bottom here. But what this helps you do is it helps you identify the relationship-based supports. These can be paid or unpaid supports that people can use to help them do a variety of things in their communities. And then the eligibility side helps us, you know, this is a great opportunity for people to have conversations and jot down, how do you want your eligibility-based services to look? Have you taken a look at, and the DD Council with DDD recently made a family-friendly and person-friendly guide to the community care program, in addition to the one they had on the supports program. But have you taken a look at all the services that are available? And have you listed the ones that you may want to tap into? And have you investigated the ways that self-directed options may be able to be used? I know that, you know, Ann does a lot, Ann and Joe do a lot working together to really map out the way his self-directed services work. But then Amy also mentioned, now we have the opportunity to purchase supports brokerage services that can do a lot of that work with you and help you, so you don't have to do it all on your own. So that's something to look at in terms of eligibility-based supports. There's a lot more options out there. And then the community-based supports, you know, whether it's you as a person or a family tapping into the community-based supports, or whether it's a service provider saying, you know what, instead of staying here in the day program, we're going to go help people volunteer, or we're going to go help people to participate in the rec center or the Y. You know, those things are all things that you may want to communicate with your service providers and your supports coordinators to say, hey, we know this exists in our community. We'd like to be able to tap into it a little more. How can we do that? And then now we're learning a lot more about technology-based supports. And while we all know that it's not perfect for everybody and it may not be right for everybody, a lot of people are realizing, you know, like Ann and Joe said, oh, we can really use some of this technology to help support ourselves a little better. So, you know, making a list of those things, and we really just wanted to show you a tool to help you have these conversations and help people jot down their ideas. Because I don't know, if you're anything like me, you have all these ideas in your head, and then when it comes down to talking about them, they go out the window. So having this stuff written down can really help guide some of those conversations. So the next time you have a phone call or a Zoom with your support coordinator, break this out and talk about what people are envisioning. Talk about what you want for your life. And the support coordinators can help you to really get that. So does anyone, I mean, Mercedes, does anyone have questions? It's 8 o'clock now, and I know we're sort of done, so.
Well, there were a lot of questions in the chat about children's services, so I'm just going to really encourage people to tune into the 2 July sessions on, reopening and reimagining children's services. We will focus on, school as part of this children's services town halls, and I think Michael's got that slide up there now for the upcoming sessions, July 9th at 7 p.m. and then again July 16th at 7. So, and you can register through the link there.
Thanks, Mercedes. And I am noting the time that it is 1 minute after 8. We like to run these things exactly 2 minutes over time. Sorry about the expansion, but I think there's been a ton of great information going back and forth here. Again, in the chat, it's been very active. I'm going to just take a second to thank everybody. Again, all of our DD partner participants, all of the attendees from the public, my colleagues from Disability Rights New Jersey, and especially our guests, Carolyn, Joe, Amy, and Anne, taking some time out of their days, all very busy. They have a lot going on to share their perspectives with all of us. We hope to see all of you next on July 9th. In between, have a happy Independence Day, stay safe and stay healthy, and we're going to sign off. Thank you all, and take care.